Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Poetry Slam. Poetry Slam is brought to you by Mayday Games. It's for 3 to 10 players ages 10 and up, and it plays in about 25 to 45 minutes. Alright, so let's go see if you can earn the respect of your fellow poets. The goal of Poetry Slam is to earn the most respect points and become the ultimate poet. And how you get there is you're going to be creating words based on the cards that are played, and then using those creative juices to come up with poems, 2-line couplets, in order to get the other poets to figure out what word you chose. All right, let's take a look at setup. You're going to take the word prompt cards and the letter cards. You're going to shuffle them up separately and put them in the middle of the table. Then you're going to grab the slam tokens and the loot letter chips and put them within reach of all players. Then each player receives a screen, a score sheet, and 3 snap chips placed beatnik side up, along with a player board. Then one player is chosen as the wordsmith, and generally this is the player that's the best at word games. What's going to happen here is this player is going to set up the speed tiles. These are the tiles that look like dice. They're going to shuffle them up and then create the row with starting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and so forth. These tiles are going to be used in the game round. Now, if you're playing a 6-player game or higher, then there's some special setup rules for these tiles. So here's how the game works. So the wordsmith, who was chosen earlier and who's generally the wordsmith throughout the entire game, will take speed tiles based on the number of players in the game. They will pull those tiles off the left side of the speed row and put them within reach of all players. Now, they will take the word prompt card and the letter card and flip them over. Now, these word prompt cards do various things. In this example, we're going to look at the second letter from the last is O, and then everyone creates a word based on that. All players will be frantically trying to create a word based on the criteria the cards have set. Then once you do, you quickly write it on your score sheet on the row that whatever round the game is in. Now, the thing is, once you complete that word, you grab a speed tile, one of the ones that was placed out by the wordsmith. But you may not always want the higher point tile. And we'll take a look at why these tiles are important in a bit. Quick note on word creation. So these words need to be at least 3 letters long. They can't be abbreviations. They can't be proper nouns. They can't be contractions or acronyms. And in general, they must be able to be found in an English dictionary if challenged. However, you as a group can come up with your own rules and how these words are handled, but keep those standard things in mind. Once all players have finished their word and grabbed a speed token, then you're going to score these words for length and for speed. Speed is obvious. Based on the speed token you chose, that will be your point value. But for length, there is a handy little chart on the back of your player screen that will outline how these words are scored based on their length. Now, after everyone has scored their word, it's time to move to the poetry phase. And here, you're going to be creating a 2-line couplet that rhymes, that conveys the meaning of your word. Without using your word in this 2-line couplet, you're trying to get the other poets to guess what your word is. Now, if you're like me, it's a struggle to come up with something that rhymes quickly anyway. And they do have a free-form variant that you can use for folks like me or for kids that might make this a little easier, but still you're trying to convey a story or this 2-line rhyming couplet to get folks to guess your word. Now, there really is no turn order, so if you have your poem ready, you just blurt it out. And then the other poets try to guess your word. And the first one that correctly guesses the word gets 1 point. Now, if they guess the word before you finish your poem, before you finish saying your poem, then you only get 2 points for that. And if you do finish your poem and the word is guessed correctly, then you get 3 points. And then what you're going to do is just score it on your sheet along the row for the current game round. All right, let's take a look at an example. So the cards call for the second letter from the last is O. And I chose the word doom. And my poem, remember folks, I am not very good at this. My poem is, there's darkness and danger in the air. The terrified girl is gonna swear. Right, yeah, okay, I told you I wasn't very good at this. But you get the general idea. And then you keep going around the table until all the poets have recited their poems. Now, if you can't really come up with a poem in a reasonable amount of time, you may pass. And if you don't have a poem that rhymes and the collective group doesn't really think it rhymes, then you score no points, and you score no points for passing. Now we move to the letter loss phase. And this is where the speed tiles come into play. You're going to flip them over, and on the back side it will have a letter or a tiered level. And you're going to take your player board and you're going to have to cover that letter with a token. Or if it's a tier level, you pick the letter within the tier that it calls for. But either way, you're going to lose letters for the next and subsequent rounds, which means your words that you create are going to get harder and harder as the game progresses. So some of those higher point speed tiles will probably eliminate more frequently used letters. So the thing here that to note too is that when you have several letters covered and you happen to use a letter, because people do make mistakes, you will get a slam token if you use a letter on your player board that's already covered. The slam token will be negative points at the end of the game. All right, let's talk a little bit more about these slam tokens. Not only do you get a slam token for using lost letters, but you get a slam token for things like misspelled words. If you don't correctly meet the criteria from the word prompt cards or the letter cards, that will get you a slam token. And if you violate the rules of words, you'll also get slam tokens. So things of this nature. But at the end of the game, these slam tokens are worth -2 points. So you really need to be careful about what you do with these words. And finally, let's talk about these snap tokens. So throughout the game, you're going to be giving praise to your fellow poets. And if someone has a really great poem, you're going to flip the beatnik side to the snap side. And basically that's how you're giving praise to your fellow poets for doing a great poem. And the reason you would do this, of course, is that if you hold on to these tokens till the end of the game, a beatnik side, you get negative points for each one of those. So it is in your best interest to give these tokens out, even though the snap side will give a +1 to whoever you give it to. Then after the final round, the game comes to an end and you total up your score, and whoever has the highest score will be declared the ultimate poet of the land. Now, depending on how many players there are in the game will dictate how many rounds of play there will be. Hey folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. But with that said, this is a really polished prototype. I'd say they're pretty near completion on this. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that may occur. Now, if you love word games and party games in general, this is probably right up your alley. And if you want to be the ultimate poet in the land, definitely give this one a look. So if this does look like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they would appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.